So good morning and welcome to week 6 of our virtual low vision fair. Today's presentation is on Braille and Braille devices. The virtual low vision fair comes to you from the Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired. Our mission is to promote the dignity and empowerment of the people of Wisconsin who are blind and visually impaired through legislative advocacy, vision services, and education. Our speakers today are Katie Corbett. Katie is a communications specialist with Promote Local and a freelance writer and a Braille user. We have Roger Bain, who operates Adaptive Information Systems in Janesville, and he'll be representing the HumanWare products. And then the third speaker is from HIMSS, and there'll be a video from Earl Harrison, but Randy Ahn, the CEO at HIMSS, is here with us today in person. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Katie to get us started.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. My name's Katie Corbett, as Jean said, and I have been a Braille user since I was probably 4 years old. I am totally blind, and I think that had a lot to do with my early introduction to Braille. And I learned Braille from my mom. She actually learned Braille and taught me. And in addition to learning how to use the Perkins Brailler, which is essentially a Braille, you can think of it as a Braille typewriter where the paper rolls in and out. I also learned how to use a slate and stylus. And I learned just over the years through my own curiosity and, getting credit for it from the Hadley School. I learned grade 1 Braille, grade 2 Braille, and grade 3 Braille. I've dabbled a little bit in Braille music notation and a little bit into computer Braille, and I can read UEB, which is Unified English Braille. I'm still working on getting proficient at writing it. But since I primarily use Braille for my own notes and labeling, that process has moved a little bit slower than it might if I were writing Braille to be read by other people. A little bit about the devices I most regularly use. I am a really firm believer in the slate and stylus. I find it really helpful it's like the equivalent of having a pen or a pencil. You don't need to put batteries in it. You don't need to charge batteries up. You just need a piece of paper and your slate and stylus. And I use it for grocery lists, writing down phone numbers, writing to-do lists, just all kinds of, I do some songwriting, and so I write the lyrics using the slate and stylus. And it's just been a really great way to write Braille in a portable format. And I've also just recently purchased a slate and stylus that you can only write 80 Braille cells with it, but it doesn't use paper. So it just has pins that pop up. So when you're writing on it, I can hold it up and maybe you can see it in the video. So it feels like a normal slate, and then you have a stylus, and then when you're writing, little pins pop up on the other side. So you just flip it over basically, and then there's your Braille. And I use that a lot for things, if someone's giving me you pay your credit card bill and you have a confirmation number, I'll write that down on this little guy until I can actually put it with my statement, and write it on the piece of paper that has my statement on it, or even phone numbers where it's like, I'm just going to need to know this for like a little bit of time, and then it doesn't matter so much anymore. I'll just write it on that slate and stylus because it's a quick thing that I can grab. I do have a Braille display. I chose to get the Braille Me. It's been an interesting experience. It is one of the more affordable Braille displays out there. It's around $500. And the reason I chose it is because I grew up with a Braille and Speak, and I used a Braille Light device throughout my schooling years. And the Braille Me, it has a lot of the same feel as one of those devices, just with the weight and the size. And it can still connect with my computer, and it can Bluetooth to my phone, my iPhone. So I use that a lot of times for, I have a blog that I update regularly. And so sometimes I want to write for my blog, and the Braille display only takes literally seconds to boot up, whereas my laptop takes a whole minute and a half. But sometimes being able to boot up really quickly is the difference between me like getting motivated and getting things done, and me saying I'll do it tomorrow. So I use the Braille Me for that. And also sometimes when I'm reading documents on my phone, for example, I'm part of a prayer group, and the people were using a certain app to read the prayers. And I was able to open the app on my phone, connect with my Braille display using Bluetooth, and read the prayers out loud in Braille. So I didn't have to worry about trying to repeat back what VoiceOver says. So, yeah, I mean, the beautiful thing about Braille, particularly if you're just using it yourself and you're not writing things for other people to read, is you can kind of make it your own. As I said, I learned grade 3 Braille, and every now and then I'll review some of the symbols, but every now and then I'll be writing and I can't quite remember what a symbol stands for. So I'll just write a symbol and tell myself in my head, okay, this means this word. And it's not stressful because I'm the only one who's going to be reading it. So even if you only learn letters A through J, or numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, or, if you just use, make symbols to kind of stand for what you want them to stand for, as long as you know what that means, you can kind of make Braille your own a little bit. I've really enjoyed being able to read in the dark. That's been really fun. Definitely drove my siblings up the wall when I was in school, because I would stay up late and read books, and wouldn't keep them up because there wouldn't be light. But yeah, it was entertaining. And I think, unless anyone has any questions for me or questions about how I use Braille, I have Braille on my microwave. I have Braille on like various devices throughout my home, labeling, essential oil bottles or ingredients for food with Braille. So if anyone has any questions about ways that I use Braille, or any questions about how I learned Braille, let me know. Thanks.
Thanks, Katie. On your Braille labeling, do you use just like one of those Dymo labelers to do those?
I have a Dymo labeler. I also have a slate and stylus that has the slate has a special slot where you can slide labeling tape in. And I really like using that, because then, with the Dymo labeler, I can't write grade 3 Braille. And with the slate and stylus, I can. That has been a fun way to continue to use grade 3 when I'm labeling.
Great. I was just going to check in with the people who are here. Do you all know about the different grades of Braille? Feel free to say no if you're not familiar, and Katie can just say a few words about that.
I know about grade 1 and grade 2, but what's grade 3?
Yeah, good question. So grade 1 is written letter for letter, as you know. Grade 2 has some contractions like the AND sign, the THE sign. you know, some of the .5 signs and .45 signs and all of that stuff. Grade 3 Braille takes it to the next level. So for every single character in the Braille code, the 63 possible characters, there are .5 signs, .4 signs, .45 signs, and even .456 signs. So by putting those dots before one of the characters, it can indicate a whole word. For example, .4S in grade 3 Braille is same. So the word same, it stands for the word same. .456 followed by O is stands for the word over, and it can also be written in combination with other letters. So like C.456O is cover. It's pretty cool. So there's all those different symbols that stand for different words. And then there are also different rules where you can eliminate spaces between words in some circumstances. It saves a lot of room. When I was in college, for example, I would have an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and I could take notes for an entire lecture on maybe, well, if it was a really busy lecture, it would maybe fill the whole page, but you know, sometimes it would even be less than that, depending on what happened in class that day. So I used it a lot in college when I was taking notes. Thank you for the question.
Any other questions for Katie? So do you write, like for your work, your communications work, do you write in Braille or is that audio?
Most of the time when I'm writing for my communications work, I'm doing it on my computer.
Mm-hmm.
Although we do use Google Docs, and so I will sometimes have my phone or have the Google Docs open on my computer and have my Braille display there.
Mm-hmm.
So I can read the document and make edits there. That's another thing I will say. So as a writer, screen readers are great, spell check is great, but it doesn't catch everything. And so sometimes it is very handy to have a Braille display to read the words that I wrote and catch certain things, particularly because, in journalism, there are certain rules that apply that don't necessarily apply in everyday writing. For example, when we're writing the numbers 1 through 10 in journalism, you usually write them out as words. And my screen reader, unless I go through character by character and make a point to double check all the numbers, it won't tell me, it won't say 1 ONE, it just says 1. And so I have to check and see if that's a number or a letter. And so it's written out in letters. So it's faster to use the Braille display to just double check things like that and make sure that things are correct without having to go through character by character with my screen reader.
Thanks, Katie. And if you have if you think of any questions as we go along, just put them in the chat, or Katie's going to stay with us, and so she'll be able to answer them later if they come up for you. Okay, so our next speaker will be Roger Bain. So Roger?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you.
Okay. Yep. Okay, I'm Roger Baim. I'm the president and owner of Adaptive Information Systems, Inc. in Janesville, Wisconsin for the past 20 years. I started with this company in '98 when I was an employee and bought it out in October of 2001. And I've been mainly now just nothing but a humanware dealer, where I did touch on all the other ones, but I found humanware to be the most reliable, honest, and you could talk right to the CEO. In some companies, you can't even talk to the head honcho. But humanware has always been, and so have I been, a very strong advocate of the right to have Braille. We can't help it. It costs so darn much, but we have the right to see the printed word. And so I have pushed hard, and if I keep getting sighted people and others keep saying, well, they got screen readers, that's good enough. No, it's not. How would you like if your monitor and print material all was taken away and you had to listen by speech only? Your literacy would go right down horrible. So I've been always pushing it hard, and Humanware has always been great about sending older devices of Braille to third world countries because they can't afford the expensive Braille displays. Now with the Orbit reader and the Braille Me, it's making more possible for people to have Braille. And I own both the Braille Me, the Orbit. I mean, I got so many devices in here. I got 3 Apexes, 5 touches. I got Braille displays, the new Brilliant by 20X and 40X, which just came out this year. They introduced them last year and they finally started shipping them. And if you like Braille, these are a lot more than a Braille display. They're an intelligent Braille display with either a 20 cell or 40 cell. And they're not really any bigger, but they have internal memory of 16 or 32 gigabytes. They have an internal modem and a Bluetooth. And they have Type-C charging and a standard USB port and the patented thumb keys on the HIMS product or the Humanware products. And the thing I always tell people is they're not only a 20 and a 40 cell, they also have speakers. You tell me what Braille display has speakers. The reason is they already have the library built in for 3 different sources. So automatically download your newspapers, your Braille material from Bookshare, if you're a member, Newsline from NFB or from NLS. And it's fascinating. And they're going to turn the speakers on because they want to do audio books and so forth. And I've been pushing hard, and I think it's coming, but I can't hold me to it, is put a TTS engine in it also. So you have the option of speech. Because unfortunately, in our society, figures I've seen from NLS and others, about 80% or higher do not read Braille. I've had people who are my customers and I try to introduce to go to a Braille display or something. I rather learn Spanish. It's easier. Really? I've had teachers who teach the blind. And in 2009, we came out with the Louis Braille coin, the first time ever Braille was on a United States currency. And I had a sighted teacher in Illinois tell me, oh, we don't teach Braille anymore. It's obsolete. Oh, I'd like to wring her neck. I said, I've been blind since about 18. So I didn't learn Braille till later. And I learned it at the State School for the Blind in Janesville from Mr. Alton Davis. And I lost my sight in 9th grade. So thank God they pushed Braille on me in 8th grade. I thought it was cool making all these funny designs with dots. And then I realized, oh, you can actually read stuff. So I've been doing that. And like Katie, I have many slates and styluses. I have the 9-line double-sided 3x5 ones, and I carry it everywhere I go. So if somebody wants contact information, I can quick Braille out in grade 1 or grade 2 for them and hand them a piece of paper. But I also have 5 Perkins Braille writers. One I've given to my oldest daughter, Naomi, who's a teacher of the visually impaired with a master's degree in the Madison School District. And she's been there for 7 years now, and she also is a master's in orientation mobility. So once in a while, I get a free mobility lesson crossing 14th to Van Gelder without being roadkill. So it's fascinating Braille, and with these new Braille displays, and of course, Humanware has put out the Braille Note since the beginning of the century, and we're up to the Braille Note Touch Plus 18 and 32 Android operating. And I mean, it's the #1. I have all of Michigan, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, plus I deal with other customers throughout the United States, Canada, and overseas. And they are just outstanding devices. And in fact, I lend them out all the time to different teachers and stuff here and in Michigan and so forth, so they can try before they buy it, because they're not cheap. But it's nice to be able to have an Android product, to do the things that sighted people do, like watch Netflix or movies or TV, or go to YouTube or anything else under the sun. Plus, you have Word docs. Everything is saved in Word docs. You can wirelessly print. You can wirelessly Braille emboss. And I pushed hard for Braille embossers and that stuff. Hard copy Braille. Yeah, electronic devices are nice, but what if it breaks or it doesn't work? Thank God you got a Perkins Braille or Slate and Stylus, or you printed it out on your embosser, so you have hard copy. And Humanware carries the Juliet 120, the Romeo 60, the Everest cut sheet, and the Index Basic D. And these all brand new, lightweight, interpoint or single-sided, weighing 22 pounds, have built-in speech, built-in upgrade. You can do embossing 5 different ways, from a thumb drive to your browser to Duxbury. And I do a lot, and I mean a lot of free embossing for people. When they buy a product from me, or if they call me up, I'll print them up because I have 3 embossers, 2 Juliets and Index, and they are so nice. 22 pounds, that's all they are. No more busting your back. And they aren't cheap, but they're still the same price they always have. It's just now that Humanware carries them. And I've sold many, many, many of them, 2 years warranty, and they are 120 to 150 characters per minute. I mean, still louder than heck, but I've always had a Braille embosser since the late 1990s, and I strongly have always pushed for it. Now they do graphics, jumbo Braille, sideways Braille, brochures, you name it. They can do so many things, and they're like a print printer. You just send it to the embosser off a thumb drive or off a Duxbury. It automatically finds top of page, does it, sticks it out, you rip it off, go to your next document, it backs it up, prints it up again. And I do users manuals and keyboard command summaries and all kinds of things in Braille for people. And, you know, just Braille has always been important. I'm not a fast Braille reader because I learned later in life, I'm a 1-finger Braille reader, but I would never give my Braille up. As Katie says too, screen readers don't cut it when is that a C, a V, a B, or numbers or whatever it is. Thank God I have Braille for doing charge cards and looking at their email addresses. Oh my God, if it wasn't for Braille, it would really be hard in that stuff to understand different things. But I've worked through all the school systems here in Wisconsin, and now I'm working with Michigan TVI teachers, a lot of customers all over the United States. And of course, with the popular Victor Trek and Victor Stream, those aren't in Braille devices, but they give you audio feedback and traveling and, you know, reading your books. You know, it's really nice that way. But, you know, there's so many ways of doing it. And the thing I keep pushing people, that the Library for the Blind gives you the iBill. It's good for the deaf blind now because it vibrates or talks or beeps. But vibration is good for a deaf blind person because they have different vibrations to tell the denomination of the money. And I keep saying it's free. And soon, I don't know how soon, you know, the government, we will have free Braille e-readers, a 20-cell device. The main one is made by Humanware, and we call it the 20X. They call it the e-reader from Humanware, or APH calls it the Chameleon. But, you know, it's the best one out there, and it has the thumb keys, everything else. And you can download straight to it, just like you can with the 20X and 40X from NLS or whatever. The unfortunate thing is APH sells the Chameleon and Mantis. Mantis is a 40-cell Braille display, full keyboard QWERTY. And that stuff, neither one have speech. Now the Chameleon might in that stuff for it, but they cannot, or they are not allowed to download Braille material from NLS. Don't ask me what those two companies had between them, but when people buy the Chameleon or the Mantis, and then you found later they can't download Braille stuff from NLS, they aren't too happy. But that was the agreement when Humanware made them. NLS said you don't let them have access to our Braille material. So you do have to be aware of it, but I'm a dealer for the Mantis too, because we have always stressed Braille is important, but you must know the QWERTY keyboard. You can't go through life without knowing how to touch type. I was forced in 2nd grade to learn on a manual large print typewriter and not to look. And boy, I got yelled at when I cheated and looked, because being blind, thank God now, you don't think twice of it. It's touch Braille, every touch typing. But, you know, Braille has always been an important part of my life, and I've always pushed hard for it for all kinds of other students and customers and senior citizens who like to read books and so forth. And I'll never stop pushing it. And I love what I do. And I always discount everything and free shipping and all kinds of free extra material in Braille. Because if you buy a Braille device, I'm going to give you the user guide in Braille in that stuff, because it's nice to have hard copy keyboard commands next to you, or the user guide to quick look something up. Yeah, a lot of the products have it online, but it's not, you know, you got to stop and go into it and read it and so forth. But no, it's been a great, if you gotta be up. But if you are blind, this is the time to be it, with all the technology, talking barcode readers, you name it, and all the other things you have with computers and smartphones and tablets and on and on and on. But Braille is very crucial, and I will push it to the day I die. So anyways, that's a real brief summary of what my company does. And I always, 7 days a week, free tech support, and a lot of times free Braille. But if you have any questions, just spit them out and I'll do the best I can to answer them.
Roger, there was a question in the chat box from Denise about what would be an an affordable Braille embosser for someone to get to use to provide Braille things to make restaurants, local stores, etc., more accessible.
I missed that first part of the question. What was it?
Affordable Braille embosser.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a lot of them do it, but like restaurants, I have the Horizons for the Blind does a lot of that down in Illinois. But restaurants are they either go in and out of business, especially now with COVID, or their menus change so often. And so it's hard to keep it up to date. And everybody goes, just go to your iPhone, you know, and stuff. But not everybody is a smartphone user, including me. So it's not always an option. But, you know, I'll do what I can for people. And there's companies who do it. I think Able does some stuff in Milwaukee, Horizon for Blind, certain other agencies do free brailing or low cost brailing for people.
Okay. What if someone were looking to purchase a Braille embosser? What would you consider an affordable one from your business?
Like I say, Braille's never cheap, but these have 2 years warranty, which is fantastic. We used to carry the View Plus, but they just turned out to be really poor quality and had problems with them and very expensive. Ours start at the single-sided Romeo 60 this is all retail price. I don't sell retail, I sell less, but $34.95 for the Romeo 60. Then you go up to $39.95 for the Index Basic D, which is Interpoint, $43.95 for the Everest, which is single cut sheet, not tractor fed, and then $44.95 for the Juliet 120. So they're not cheap, but you get 2 years warranty, and these are usually built to last like a tank. So yeah, I mean, I tell people if you're only going to do part-time, try to find a used one, because that's a lot of money to put out if you're not going to be using it a lot. But it's nice having, but also consider if you're in an apartment building or something else, find a place where you can put that sucker, shut the door and run, because they're loud.
I can attest to the loudness of the embossers.
Yeah.
Since I'm just a few doors down from our embosser, even with the door closed.
Oh yeah, it sounds like a machine gun or something going off.
What's an embosser?
It's like a printer that produces, instead of print on paper, this produces hard copy Braille, and it's electronic, so you don't have to sit there and type on a Perkins Braille writer or Slaton stylus. And so you can produce just about anything. In fact, the nice thing about these embossers, I can take a thumb drive, a USB thumb drive, and I can put on PDFs, BRL, BRFs, TXT, RTF, DOC, DOCX, all these different HTML, put them on a thumb drive, put them in with the speech that's built right in. I can say, yeah, print that document. Boom, it prints it out. And you pick grade 1, grade 2, UEB or US, how many characters per line, how many lines. So you have total control, and you don't have to buy Duxbury for $700, which I sell. But if you're not, it's only for you. Why spend the money when you can do it very, very easily off of a thumb drive?
Roger, I was wondering if you could go back to like maybe your top 2 Braille devices and sort of do a compare and contrast of them.
Yeah, I mean, we've always been #1 in schools and everything else with the Braille Note, and it developed from the Braille Note Classic all the way up to the new Braille Note Touch Plus, which is an Android operating system. And because Windows CE died, the Apex, so many people were crying because the Braille Note Apex finally is dead. They won't support it, can't get parts for it anymore, but yet people still love it. But the Braille Note Touch is my #1, and now with these new brilliant, intelligent Braille displays, I mean, just in the first 6 months of this year, I sold over 50 units. People love them. They connect so easy with your iPhone, and soon will work with Android phones and tablets. And with the universal Braille drivers, with Narrator and Android, they'll have that soon. But JAWS, NVDA, and iOS has that already built in, so it makes it so easy to hook them up. But those are my 2 big things, I think, is the Braille No Touch and then the Braille display, the new Brilliance. Those are the big 2 items that go. And there's nobody out there that does what the Brilliant VI 20 and 40X. I mean, speakers, built-in memory, and change your own battery, SD card, USB. You know, and they're so lightweight, 13 ounces for the 20 and under 2 pounds for the 40. So those are my top sellers, and there's nothing out there that compares.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Roger, it's Jim.
Yep.
Is the BI 20 the same hardware as the Chameleon?
Almost, not quite. They, like I said, you can't download from NLS.
Right, but with the hardware is pretty much the same,
yeah,
right?
pretty much. I think I haven't seen now whether they allow to have speech. I'm not sure. on their issues, and there are some restrictions. We have more software, the Keysoft Lite
Yeah.
on ours. But yeah, otherwise, because APH has to change it ultimate so they can use the quota system. So that's
Right.
why they changed the name, puts up. But yeah, pretty much the same. That's what the e-readers like too. They're all
Yep.
the same unit, all made by Humanware.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep. And oh, I could tell you too, they're $18.95 my price, free shipping, no tax, free leather case from Executive Products, and 6 Braille documents. And the 40X is $31.95 list. I discount it, free leather case, and all the same Braille documents and all that kind of stuff. So you get a lot of extras. You just don't get the unit. Don't call me. I want you to call me.
Okay, any other questions for Roger?
This is Katie.
Uh-huh.
I'm really curious about the e-reader from NLS. I mean, it was kind of one of my decisions going into getting the Braille Me. I was kind of like, well, I'll pay, you know, $500 for this display, and then I'll wait until the e-reader comes out. What is it? Just kind of like what are the holdups on that? Are they still doing testing with it, or?
It's called the government.
Got it.
Funding. And they got
Okay.
5 areas are testing it. Of course, we aren't, but I have a lady in Alabama and she's trying out certain areas. It's just, you know, getting them out. But they supposedly said there was something like 45,000 Braille readers or users from NLS. So they at least got to make 50,000 units. And Humanware will be producing that one. So far, the Humanware e-reader is leading the ZoomX because they've never been in Braille displays before. But who knows, with the government and COVID and all this other stuff, how soon that will come, I don't know. But eventually, it'll be their philosophy in NLS. If we produce audiobooks, we give you a free digital reader, you know, player. We produce Braille, which they've done, then we should provide a device that puts Braille on it and downloads straight to your device.
Cool, thanks.
Yep.
I don't see any other questions coming up for Roger.
Yep, thanks for having me.
So I'm going to turn it over then to Randy on from HIMS.
Hey, so I'm gonna share the screen, and we're gonna see the presentation by our Harrison, which is our national account manager at HIM. So okay, here we go.
And thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry I couldn't join you in person today, but I do want to thank my coworker for stepping in to me to answer some questions you might have following this pre-recorded presentation. So what I was asked to speak about today was the differences between using a Braille display and a note taker. And of course, I'm with HIMS Incorporated, and we have both of those solutions. In fact, both of our flagship products are actually Braille devices. And dive in with the Q Braille. I'm going to hold up the Q Braille for those of you who can see it. And then naturally, I will describe what we're looking at here for those of you who may not be able to see the screen, but and also hasn't had the opportunity to get their hands on one of these devices. So the best way that I can describe this is that is a 40-cell Braille display. It's called the Q Braille XL. Q for QWERTY, Braille, B for Braille, and XL is the number of cells, is the Roman numeral for 40. This device actually does have some internal note-taking features, but in and of itself, it has zero connectivity, well, I should say Wi-Fi abilities, because we figure that if you want to use a very robust Wi-Fi system, whether it be on your computer or your laptop, probably you're going to, I should say computer or your phone or your tablet, whatever that is, whether it's an iPad or a some sort of Android device, then you can connect to those devices. In fact, you can connect up to 6 Bluetooth devices simultaneously and 1 USB device, making for a total of 7 simultaneous connections that you can actually flip back and forth between. So again, I'm still holding up the Braille display. I hope you can see it. And the best way I can describe this is that we've got imagine a laptop keyboard, a QWERTY keyboard, and you take away all the letters and the numbers in the main keyboard area, and in their place, you put a Perkins style keyboard. And that is what we've done. And we're really amazed that nobody has done this yet, that we were the first to do it. And it has really proven to be a fantastic combination, because the Braille translation actually takes place on the device itself. So as I'm typing into a connected device, like a Windows computer, let's say I'm drafted an email message, for example, I can type in contracted Braille, and because the translation happens on the fly, as soon as I press the space bar to indicate that I'm at the end of a word, or perhaps I press the a punctuation mark, we get the same result, where the word knowledge, for example, is just the letter K in Braille. So I can just type K space and boom, over in my edit field appears the word knowledge on the computer. And of course, the recipient only sees that there's a text-based email message there for them to read. So this is a fantastic option for connectivity. Also, it has a book reader, a DAISY book reader. It does also allow us to read text-based PDF documents, etc. So again, we've got 40 Braille cells. We've got a nice protective case with a magnetic closure here. And I think it's probably the most versatile Braille display on the market. And if you don't believe me about that, you can check out some of the reviews that are available online. Just type Q Braille XL reviews and you'll see what we mean. So I've actually got this connected, and I accidentally pressed a key. I pressed the applications key on the device itself, and I've got it connected to the computer that I'm using to record this presentation. So why don't I just go ahead and demonstrate how I can, well, you can't hear my speech, so demonstrating a Braille display is kind of hard to do, but I can do all the things that I would do on this Braille display, all the things that I would do on a QWERTY keyboard, including my screen reader commands, because we've got, just to give you the physical layout of the top panel here, or the main keyboard area, we've got the escape on the far left side. I'll hold it up again. All our function keys, so escape, all our function keys going across the top. And here to the far right, we have our 6-pack, which is comprised of our insert, delete, page up, page down, home, and end keys. We've got the inverted T, which of course are our arrow keys, and we've got, moving from left to right, all the keys you would expect on a laptop computer: Control, FN, Windows, Alt, Space. We've got the right Alt key, the Applications key, or the right-click key, context menu key, whatever you want to call it, and again, a right Control key. Over here, just below F1, we've got the Shift, and the caps lock above that, and the Tab key. The only keys on here, aside from the cursor routing buttons and the scroll keys down here around the Braille display, the only keys that we have that aren't generally a part of a QWERTY keyboard are the pairing key and the mode key. And the pairing key is what allows us to connect to up to 6 devices. And the mode key is the key that allows us to go in and out of hybrid mode, in and out of mass storage mode. So if you're connected to the computer with a USB cable and you want to just go ahead and fly files back and forth between the provided SD card, the reason the SD card is provided is because it is required to be able to use it with the internal functions of the device. So this is a pretty robust solution and it actually retails at $31.95. So $3,195 plus the cost of shipping. So that is the Braille XL. The next device that I'm going to show you is a brand new device that has just recently began shipping, and that is called the Braille Sense 6. This is the successor to the Braille Sense Polaris. It is a full functioning note taker. And the difference between this device and the other device that I showed you earlier is that this device allows us to do everything online, just like an Android tablet would, or an iPad would, for example, versus the Braille display, which has no direct online access. So that's probably the biggest difference. Well, the Braille displays tend not to need a lot of horsepower, but under the hood with the, and for those of you car enthusiasts, right? Why do people use car analogies? I don't know. Anyways, horsepower under the hood. Under the hood, we are running Android version 10. And I know that 12 was just released, and when this came out, 11 was already out. And people ask, well, why didn't you use one of those? It's because you got to start somewhere, folks. And in our case, we started with, of course, had to start on Android 10. The good news is that is going to be because of the hardware specifications at this point in time. Hopefully, it does not change soon. Knock on wood. That is actually wood here. That we will be able to update you to a more current version of Android. But hey, I'm telling you, we're retroactive with Android 10 all the way back to 6. Versus the Polaris, its predecessor, which was a good note taker, but it kind of hit the wall at Android version 5, and anything developed for 6 and up could not or cannot be installed on that particular device. You have to do what's called side loading of older devices with what are called APK or Android. What I think it's called. Oh, what is it? APK, Android Pack. So that's what I get for trying to Android packed resources or something like that. APK. Anyway, but you don't have to do that with the 6 because you can just go to the Play Store and see all the install all the current devices or all the current applications onto this device. In addition, which makes this device, the Braille Sense 6, probably the most powerful note taker on the market, is the fact that we really beefed up the hardware specification. So, of course, we've got double the memory, double the space, double the storage capacity on the Braille Sense 6 compared with a lot of the other note takers on the market. So, in addition to running Android version 10, we have an octa-core processor versus the quad-core, I believe, on the Polaris. We're running 128 gig of onboard storage versus the 64 gig on the Polaris. And of course, there's lots of room for expansion with SD cards and even mass storage devices like SSDs and things like that. We've got 6 gig of memory, or random access memory, I should say, or RAM, which again makes it double the speed, or rather double the memory of the Polaris and some other devices out there. And with that, we've got a really, really quick user interface. Now, I'm not going to get into a lot of applications, but what I will do is put this down in front of me, and I'm going to press the key that always gets me into the main menu, which is F1, and that always gets me into my file manager. I'm just going to go ahead and go down through these menus that you hear.
Word processor, W.
We've got a word processor, notepad,
Email, E.
and just to speak to the speed of the notepad or the word processor.
Notepad, N.
I'm going to go ahead and press the enter key and let you hear how quickly it loads. Now with the Polaris, it would take a few seconds to load, but with pressing the enter key on Notepad here, you see that
Top of document.
we're already, it's immediate. So now
Now.
I am typing
Typing.
in contracted Braille,
Contracted. Braille period.
and I've got it set to echo words currently. And we hear that no matter how fast I type, let me just go ahead and go to the next line and type a bunch of D's. If you're a fast Braille reader or typist, if you could out-type the Polaris previously, you would be pretty hard-pressed to out-type the Braille Sense 6 because it's that responsive. Okay, I press space Z to bail out of here.
No prompt button.
And I'm going to say, no, I don't want to save my
Notepad. N.
literary wonder. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go into a Google search right now, because remember, I said that the only difference, really, the big difference between using a Braille display and connecting with other devices and using a note taker is that you could have all of these things in one device. By the way, let me go back
File manager. F.
to the main menu, and I'm going to just go ahead and press enter here.
Flash disk 1-3 list item.
We've got, and I hear that I've got 3 items: flash disk,
SD2 list item.
SD,
Google Drive. 3
Google
list item.
Drive. And if I go into Google Drive, I will see that all of my files that I've been working on are there, including a classroom folder where I've got some work that I can actually share with other people. So if you're in a classroom situation, you can share a folder, share files, things like that, download them to your Braille Sense, work on them, maybe rename it a little bit to include perhaps your initials or whatever. Yeah, this seems to be the easiest way to collaborate on the document. Then you just upload it back to the cloud when you're finished with it. This is fantastic. Copying and pasting between the flash disk and the cloud is just as easy as copying and pasting between a flash disk and a thumb drive, for example, or an SD card. So let's go back to
File manager. F.
File Manager. I'm going to go down through here. Let's just kind of talk about some of the things that we have in the Braille Sense 6.
Word processor. W.
Of course, we've got the difference between the notepad and the word processor. If you go to our YouTube channel, you will see that there's actually a presentation on content creation posted there, which explains the differences between when you would use the two. We've got a series, in fact, of very short, useful videos that our consumers have requested us to cover. And, as those requests come in, we try to do our best to get them developed and posted.
Notepad. N. Email. E.
So email, we've got a few choices for email. You can either do the old-fashioned way, POP3. And mind you, just because it's old-fashioned doesn't mean it's bad. It's just the way you prefer to do things, where you can download your email directly to the device and elect to keep them up on the server for a number of days. Or you can do IMAP, which manages your email on the server. And so, for example, if I go there on my iPhone, it doesn't matter if I go and delete something from my iPhone or my Braille Sense 6 or my Android phone, whatever the case is. If I delete it from one device, it's going to be gone everywhere. And we also have support for Exchange. So this is, again, another big difference for those of you who might work in a corporate environment where you've got an Exchange or an Outlook account. Anybody with a 365 account has the ability to create an Exchange email account, and it is very, very responsive and robust.
Media. M.
Media, let's go in here. So I'm basically going to press enter on the media folder.
Media player. M.
And we've got a media player, your basic media player that allows us to record as well.
FM radio. R.
FM radio.
Podcast. P.
And podcast. We actually have a podcast app. So far, all the apps that I've shown you, including the podcast app, are apps that HIMSS has created.
Google Drive, free list item.
Okay, I'm going to go back to my main menu. I see I'm back in my file manager when I press space Z as in zebra to get out of the podcast application I was brought here. So
File manager, F.
that's file manager. And let's go back down to
Word, notepad, email, media, M. Books, K.
books. I'm going to press enter in here.
Daisy player, D.
So I see I've got a Daisy player,
Document reader, K.
document reader, which if you don't want to affect your documents, you can open it in here and not you won't change anything.
Online Daisy, O.
There's an online Daisy for those online Daisy repositories.
Bookshare download, B.
And here's Bookshare download. The Bookshare app, again, another app that HIMSS has actually developed. You will see there's an option to download content from Bookshare, download and extract, which is what I like to use, or download, extract, and open, at which point the file that you have just downloaded will open into the HIMSS Daisy book reader. It is phenomenal. It's fantastic. It's fast. You download the content quickly, and of course, our Daisy book reader allows you to access that content either with speech or in Braille. It's I can't tell you. That is probably one of my favorite features of the Braille Sense.
Bookshare download, B. Organizer, O.
Organizer. We've added the database of the organizer. If you didn't, if we weren't already aware of the fact that the U2 had a database where you can actually set up all your own databases. So if you've got an event going on, like a wedding or graduation party or something like that, you can set up your own database and have something separate from your main address book, where you can send your thank you cards, for example, after the fact by exporting to like a CSV or a comma separated values file, which can be then very easily imported into most spreadsheet applications such as Excel.
Web tools, B.
So we've got web tools.
Web browser, B. Google search, G.
We've got web browser, Google search.
Wiki search, W.
And a wiki search.
Wiki search, W.
In here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press the letter A for all apps and give you a feel for some of the
APK Pure.
apps that I've got installed here. I've got APK Pure, and I've been, the APK Pure is just one of those apps where if for some reason you can't run the current version, and there are a couple that I've run into here, but I was able to go out using APK Pure, that's at apkpure.com, and use the downloader, APK downloader, just to ensure that the files you get, the APK files you get, are safe. I'm going to down arrow again.
Assistant.
I see assistant, so I can actually say, hey, Google, what is the current temperature outside?
In Columbia Heights right now, it's 79 degrees.
Okay, so 79 degrees in Columbia Heights. You can ask it anywhere, anything. Hey, Google, how do you spell chrysanthemum?
Chrysanthemum is spelled CHRYSANTHEMUM.
And of course, I do this all the time. Hey, Google, do I have any appointments for Tuesday?
There's one entry for Tuesday. At 10 a.m., you have presentation for Wisconsin Council of the Blind.
So I'm going to go ahead and bail out of here. And I'm going to continue down through my all apps folder, just to give you a flavor for what I've downloaded onto my Braille Sense. Audible.
Audio Lab.
Audio Lab, which is an audio editor that I'm playing with. Label, let's see.
Bard Mobile.
Bard Mobile.
Be My Eyes. Best Guitar Tuner.
Be My Eyes, best guitar tuner. By the way, Be My Eyes does work well with the camera.
Calendar. Camera.
Which I didn't mention is something else you won't find on a Braille display is a 13 megapixel camera. Chrome. Classroom. Contacts. Disney. Yeah, Disney Plus, actually. I had to download the APK version of that, actually. But it works fantastic. So I'm going to press K here because first letter navigation is actually
Carry 11.
supported throughout the entire app. And I've got all the K things here. First thing was Care 11. Keep notes,
KNFB reader.
KNFB reader, which again works very well. I actually have a stand that I can use the KNFB reader with.
KSTP.
KSTP, which is our local radio station.
Local news.
Local news.
Maps.
Maps. Let's go to Netflix here.
NBC.
There's NBC.
Netflix.
Go in and set the settings for the movie that you're watching. A lot of them are going to have the second audio channel available, and it might be Spanish, it might be Hmong, or both. It might be Arabic, or it might be audio description. So to me, to be able to be out and about, perhaps I'm on the road when we get to go see each other face to face again, and I can bring up a movie and watch it completely audio described. And I do it all with this device. But when I went to visit her in North Carolina, I didn't even bring my laptop because I didn't need it. I had all my email. I had all my notes that I needed. I had all the documents, the spreadsheets, because I can use this Excel spreadsheet viewer to look at all the spreadsheets that are related to my job. But I still had to work while I was visiting there. So I had all that information, and I really didn't miss a beat. It's not a replacement for a computer, but neither is an Android tablet or an iPad. I know that these companies, Google and Apple, would love you to think that they are, and some people might be using them in that way. But most people are going to, do their content creation perhaps on their iPad, and the make it pretty part generally gets pulled up into a word processor, quite easily transferred over to the PC or the Mac. And that's where you can make it pretty. That's where you can add all your headings and your font styles and all the stuff that makes it gives it that eye appeal. So with that, I'm sure I ran over my allotted time. I want to thank you so much. Again, I apologize I couldn't be with you in person, but I want to thank you so much for considering HIMSS and for allowing us to present to you today. If you're interested in reaching out to us, you can always do so by calling us at 512-837-2000. Hit us up on our website. It's at hims-inc.com. That's HIMS-INC.com. Thanks, folks. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Any questions about the HIMSS products? Well, I don't hear any. I want to thank our speakers for today, Katie, Roger, and Earl via Randy, for sharing their information with us about the different Braille products and just some information in general about the use of Braille. Our next Low Vision Fair presentation is next Tuesday, August 24th, and the topic is managing mental health when facing vision loss. So thanks to all of you for spending some time with us this morning. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye now.